Hey guys, what's going on? We're here today. This is my 2007 335i. It has 168,000 miles on it. Stock turbo, stock motor. My turbo seals are now leaking and I'm burning oil. And I have, of course, the notorious wastegate rattle. Surprisingly, they still perform pretty well. But I think it's time for some new turbos. And I want to do a turbo cartridge swap. Being it's a high mileage motor, I don't want to throw a nice set of hybrid turbos on it. You know, if I blow the motor and it takes out the turbos, then I've wasted all that money. So to get by, I'm going a cheaper route, which is where you can buy a cartridge and do some of the labor yourself and save some money. Alright, so I decided to go with Vargas stock replacement, OEM replacements with the upgraded TD04 thrust assembly and the Vargas Billet compressor wheel upgrade. Here's the cartridge. This also has the TD04 thrust assembly in it. With that, I will also be doing the wastegate fix, where I have these new stainless steel wastegates and the bigger arms. And while doing that, I will also replace the wastegate actuators. I have these brand new. These are just BMW replacements. And of course, I ordered the installation kit. It comes with all the gaskets, studs, the new nuts, all your O-rings and seals. Alright, well, let's get started. I'm going to go back in time a little bit here. It's the night before. I just wanted to do a before and after video. Let's do a couple pulls and see what happens. So that's that. I'm going to get started. I'm going to try to keep the videos short and sweet. There's plenty of videos out there for removing turbos, dropping your subframe, and that type of stuff, so I won't go into too much detail about that. I'm going to get started, and I'll be back with you once we get into this, and once we have the turbos out of the car. Okay, we've got the car lifted in the air and supported, front wheels off. We've removed the cover underneath the car. So what we're going to do now is remove the steering rack. It's just 2 bolts here and one on the other side. We'll also drop the sway bar out of here. You can see I've got some aftermarket sway bar bushings. You can pick these up at any auto parts store. They don't have to be the BMW style. These do work. And so these are polyurethane. They work well. Another thing, we're going to drop this triangular frame out and then disconnect the lower control arms. There's a front and a rear. I'm going to take it off here and here, and I'm kind of wondering if I'm going to have to go get an alignment after this, but from what it looks like, there's no adjustment there. I find that hard to believe that the only adjustment on the front end is the toe. But maybe we'll find out once we have them disconnected. Okay, so we've got the lower control arms out. We've got the sway bar out. We ended up removing the steering rack. and everything is disconnected. Most people use the engine support bar, which you can buy at Harbor Freight for I think something like 60 bucks. I didn't want to spend the money on that to use it maybe a couple times, and I already had an engine crane, so I'm using that. Same difference. It's kind of annoying because I got to work around the legs, but I did most of the disassembly, you know, everything I could do short of unbolting the subframe. I did that all before I hooked the hoist up. But also, since I'm laying underneath this motor that's just hanging off an engine hoist with a hydraulic ram, I didn't trust that. So if you do it this way, I recommend you come up with some sort of a safety. I cut this piece of angle iron to length, and I just clamped it to the hydraulic ram. That way, if it were to fail, hopefully this piece of angle iron would catch it and at least buy me time to get the heck out from underneath there. So subframe coming out, and I've got it supported with a floor jack, which may not be necessary. I believe it's pretty light. Okay, subframe is out, and you can see that I have a little bit of an oil leak coming from the oil pan. So while I'm in here, I'll be doing that oil pan gasket. Now it's time to start pulling stuff out, taking the downpipes out. Okay, we're disconnecting our oxygen sensors. Make sure you mark them so you can remember how they go back together. You don't want to screw these up. Well, this turbo definitely doesn't look like it's leaking oil. That's the aft turbo, bank 2. You can see how much play there is. Definitely got wastegate rattle issues there. And there's the forward turbo, bank 1. That one is at least showing some signs that there's oil leaking, because otherwise I'd be worried, because I definitely get some smoke from time to time. And this wastegate is extremely loose. This one's probably the one that's rattling the most. I think that's always the case, the forward one, because you can't really do an adjustment on it without taking everything apart to this level. So that engine mount is huge, and it's right in my way, and it's 3 bolts. So I'm going to take that out as well. How many of you have ever used a swivel on an impact gun? You got to do what you got to do. Make stuff work. I don't know if it's probably not meant for this, but oh well. We break the rules. See if it'll even work. So much crap in my way. Something will probably break. Okay, so remember that the long one is the one that's hard to get at with the impact gun. Don't forget that. You know what? I lied. There's 4 bolts. I think we need the impact for that. There we go. So the water pump and thermostat housing is going to come out too. It just will create ease of access. I've already disconnected all the hoses, and I'm hoping it's just those 2 bolts that I can see right there to remove. I am taking off the water pipe. I've already removed all the fasteners, so we'll just go ahead and pull this out. I forgot to mention this before, but I ended up having to separate the thermostat housing from the water pump. It was actually 3 bolts, not 2, like I said earlier. And the 1 bolt was hidden behind the thermostat housing. There was no way to get a wrench on it without separating them. So. I'm going to take the charge pipe out now. I've already loosened up the B-band clamps. Now, I went ahead and ordered the O-rings for both sides of the intercooler. I'm still using a stock intercooler. So while I have this apart, I'm going to replace those O-rings. Also, the O-rings right there, that one and that one, you're going to want to order those too. Finally got to the part that I've been waiting to get to, which is getting the turbos removed. I already went ahead and removed most of the bolts, so I'll go ahead and get these out of here. Really have to, I mean, my goodness. You'd think at this point this would be easy. That's coming down.
Great. Oh no. Follow the line and then, oh god. Oh, there goes the turbos. Holy crap.
Turbos have finally made it out. So we have the turbos out. I'm going to start removing the water lines and the oil feed lines, and then I'll remove the wastegate actuator. Okay, I've got all the water lines and oil lines removed. I've gone ahead and made a reference mark between the turbine housing and the compressor housing and the turbo cartridge. It'll give me a visual to get the clocking right when I install the new cartridge. Alright, I'm going to start taking this apart. Oh my god. Well, I'm bending it. Maybe this one will work. Holy crap. That's junk. Plan B. What I have here is a modified needle nose. And the tips are just sharpened a little bit. Don't know if this is going to work either. Alright, plan C. Vice. Not vice. Yeah, vice. I'm going to take a punch and a hammer, try to loosen up this clip. A lot of heat and a lot of time is working against me here. Oh yeah, it's coming. Okay, so it feels like it's loose now. Maybe my cheap Harbor Freight snap ring pliers will work without bending. The snap ring pliers jaws to prevent them from bending since they're so weak. This is what you call shade tree mechanic stuff, and that worked as long as I can get that popped out. Come on, mate. And it's out. There we go. So, moving apart. There you have it. Here's the old turbo cart. Okay. Here's the old, here's the new. The new one has the Vargas Billet compressor wheel with extended tips. And it's probably hard to tell on the camera, but I can see the difference. It's supposed to improve flow, I forget, like 25% or 35%. I read online there's a guy, stock turbo with the billet wheel, running 11.1 in the quarter mile. So hopefully I can achieve something close to that. It's amazing how small these are, man. But it's such a small engine. It's cool. These cars make so much power. I've got a 71 Plymouth Duster with a big block 440 in it, and it maybe makes 400 crank horsepower, you know, something like 350 at the wheels maybe. And the Beamer's already quicker than it. I can tell. I haven't raced them, but definitely feels a lot quicker already, and I can only imagine as I keep upgrading it. It's just too easy to make 700 horse with a 3-liter engine. Alright, we're going to install the new cartridge in the compressor housing. Oh cool, you know what? It has a keyway, so you can't screw up the alignment. That's awesome. At least not on the compressor side. On the turbine side, that could be clocked. Okay, anyway, cleanliness, definitely want to keep everything clean. Put this on the camera. There's a little ding right in front of my finger. See that? It came like that. I didn't do that. Just for documentation. I don't think it'll affect anything. The O-ring is behind it. But man, that's kind of not cool. Hey, for warranty purposes, Vargas, that was there. I didn't do that. These things came out of the bubble wrap. I don't see how they would get damaged in shipping. So, don't think it will cause a problem. Anyway. Again, use a little oil on the O-rings so they don't bind up and get pinched. Definitely don't want pinched O-ring on the compressor side of your turbo for sure. That would be a boost leak. They also say prime your turbos with oil, like once you've installed them. So that fits against that keyway just like that. This is the scary part. I've got to keep from dropping this and get that snap ring in at the same time. Scary. That's right, it can push in a little bit. That's cool. Alright, you know what? Exactly. Push down. Need to turn. Okay, watch out. So it's not fully seated. No, we're gonna seat it like that. See, it's called a snap ring because it goes down into a little groove. Alright, that's it. Now it's time to start the wastegate arm repair. There's some good videos by a guy on YouTube already doing this, and I'm just following his steps. But I'm going to grind this weld off of here and remove this arm and take the flapper assembly out. You can stop filming. So I just heated this up and I put the bushing in a freezer. The video I saw, the guy uses a press. I don't have a press. I should be able to tap this in carefully. Okay, that worked. Now to put a pin in and weld it up. Okay, got the wastegate installed and welded up. Now we're going to install the turbo cartridge into the turbine housing. And I lied to you earlier saying that you could clock this however you wanted. There is actually a little pin that locates this thing, so I take that back. So we've got a complete turbo assembly. Now we're going to install the new wastegate actuator. I'm going to spin this end off and install the new larger, much larger end with the new upgraded stainless steel wastegate. So to do the wastegate actuator adjustment, you want to have the wastegate in the closed position. Push in your actuator, which is difficult, but with the wastegate closed and the actuator pushed all the way in, with the arm still disconnected, you want a half moon beyond the travel of the wastegate arm. That just ensures that the wastegate actuator has more than enough travel to pull it closed, and that looks perfect. You can watch the video on that. There's another guy who demonstrates how to do this. Anyway, that's that. One done. So the wastegate actuator is fully installed. I thought it'd be fun to put some vacuum to it and watch it operate. And that's fully closed. Alright, I got all the oil lines and the water lines back on. Getting ready to install. I'm going to do the other turbo, but it's the same thing as this, so not going to show you that one.
They think like they have those permanent tattoos, and it's actually later, not an actual turbo. I feel kind of bad for those two guys, you know. I mean, they just wasted like $1,000. I mean, you could have just bought yourself.
You mean
a
the
real
guys
turbo.
that think an alternator's a turbo?
I feel bad. I'm sorry, bud. Now you're gonna have to live with that for the rest of your life, or else you're gonna have to go through a lot of pain trying to get it off.
This is how you can check your vacuum canisters to see if you have one that's leaking vacuum. You have to have a Mighty Vac. Pump this thing up to just over 10. And you can see it's holding steady. I already checked the other one, it's good. So we're good to go. For those of you that are looking at getting catless downpipes, these are stainless steel CNC mandrel bent. so they don't have all the welds like a lot of the other downpipes that you see. They're made by 1320 Performance, and they're on the less expensive side for downpipes, and I have no complaints about them. They look sweet and they work. Alright, turbos are all installed, everything's hooked up. I just got to throw that motor mount up, and I'm throwing the subframe back in. Subframe going back in. So the last clip you saw was the subframe going back together. It's very involved, it's a lot of work, it's tedious, there's some real struggles, but it's definitely worth the end result. Another thing to note, I'm running water meth injection, and I was at 55 add with the stock turbos, and I dialed that back to 45 add just to be safe with the new turbos, because they make more boost, they spool quicker, they're running efficiently. My old turbos were worn out. I'm going to take this thing to the track, dump some 100 octane race fuel in it, dial the meth add up to 75, and just see what this thing can do. Real quick, here's the 71 Plymouth. This was the car that was getting me around while this project was going on. Definitely give yourself a week with no interruptions. I did this in 4 days, but I pulled 2 all-nighters. It was rough. I had to get the thing done because this old beast is just not reliable. It's fun, but not reliable. The after install video, we came up to the drag strip, and we're gonna do some racing. I couldn't get a hold of any race fuel, so I won't be able to crank up my tune, but we'll get a couple runs, see how the new turbos feel. Alright, stop. Guys for watching my video. This is the first YouTube video I've ever done. Plan on doing some more. I'm always working on both my cars. That's what I like to do. So again, thank you.